In this video, I want to take a look at the submission requirements for the create performance task and just make sure that it's clear what they're looking for on each of their main bulleted requirements here. So all I did was take the requirements from the student handout and copy them over here, and I put some annotations out to the side. So the first one is, the first requirement is that your program should use some kind of input. And so the input could come from the user. So this might mean just input prompts where they're answering questions or entering data, and that data is getting used in your program. A device, this might mean like if you have a game, a keyboard or a keyboard mouse, or perhaps a joystick input. An online data stream could mean perhaps there's some web page that you are using code to download and parse. That might be your input. And then finally a file. So this could be, a list of words, a list of numbers, data in some other format that your program is parsing. So, all right, the next thing, it says you have to use at least one list. Okay, that's easy. We know how to do that. But let's look at this part where they say to manage program complexity. And so here, there's a note that says the data abstraction must make the program easier to develop or easier to maintain. And so, what they're looking at here is without the list. So, you would perhaps need dozens or hundreds of individual variables that would make it more complex, lots of long, complicated if, else statements. Or if without the list, if there was suddenly a reason, the program needed to require more data, it would be difficult without using a list. But the thing you can't do is use lists just to maybe perhaps alter the syntax. So a list of 2 or 3 elements, that could be done another way really wouldn't count for this. All right, but I think if you're dealing with a list of perhaps dozens of things, you're in pretty good shape. All right. Now they talk about at least one procedure that contributes to the program's intended purpose. And procedure, this just means function. So this course is not required to be taught in any particular language. I just happen to choose Python, but this final project here can be written in any programming language you like. For most of us, Python might be the thing we want to use. But procedure is just the general word for a function. So in Python, they're called functions. If you've ever coded Java, sometimes you see they're called methods. In other languages, they might just be called procedures. So that's all. When they refer to a procedure, right, in Python, you're going to see the def and then the function name. So your procedure should have a name, obviously. May or may not have a return type, okay? And that just depends on what the function is doing. But the important part is it must take one or more parameters. So when you do the def, the function name, and the parentheses, you need to have some variables in the parentheses that are integral to the function's purpose. All right, so some more. The next part, it says an algorithm that includes sequencing, selection, and iteration that is in the body of the selected procedure, which means all 3 of these features must be included in this one function that you develop. So sequencing is easy. You pretty much can't write a function without sequencing because it just means, several steps that are executed in order. And so if you have 2 or more statements in your function, you have done that. Selection. This is getting your program to make decisions. So as far as we're concerned, all that means is some kind of if-else or if-elif-else block where different things happen based on the conditions going in, then you got it. So that's selection. And it says iteration. So we need some kind of loop in our procedure. So you could be looping until some condition is met. You could be looping through data. Okay, that really just depends on what your program is supposed to do. Here, calls to your student developed procedure. This is obvious, right? If you have a function and you're not actually calling it somewhere in your program, then it's just pointless code. So the function you make actually has to be used in your program. The last part, the output, it says can be tactile, audible, visual, textual. Most likely this means you are, if you textual, you're going to do print statements for something textual, or maybe you'll write to a file. You could have sound effects, and some of you may know how to do graphical things, and so that's possible as well. But here's the important part about the output. It says the instructions for output based on input and program functionality, which means, we're taking some input here, and your program should have some kind of purpose such that depending on the input, the output is different. It should not be something that just does one thing every single time through. All right. So that's what the requirements mean. And in the next couple of videos, what I want to do is take some programs we've written together this year and talk about how they might satisfy these requirements and where they fail to satisfy these requirements. All right. So that's it. If you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, just watch the next video.